We'll take the foreplay as read.
I'm glad no one saw that. People might talk.
What the fuck is he on about? Fuck are you on about?
Inconceivable!
It's a free country, don't you know that?
I didn't know it was that free.
Don't make people into heroes.
Fuck you. I can live my own life in my own way if I want to.
Welcome to A Shilling for Your Thoughts. My name is Heidi Schilling, and with me I have two guests today. We have
Rachel
and
Casey.
And what are we talking about today, ladies?
LGBTQ plus matters.
Plus matters. That was a nice little voice you had there.
Thank you.
I like your podcasting voice. It suits you.
It's awful.
So, why are you here?
I ask myself that same question every time. I'm just kidding.
Every time.
Well, because being like part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Oh, okay. So you're part of the community. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's your experience with the LGBTQ plus community?
Well. Being like obviously a part of it, as I said.
Well, not obvious to our listeners.
Oh yeah, sorry, listeners. Yeah, I'm a part of the LGBTQ plus community. And
you identify as
lesbian.
So the
go. L. Oh heck yeah.
You're the L.
I'm the L.
And what about you, Casey? What's your experience with the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, that's actually something that I've struggled with before, is really trying to find a label. It's so difficult because, like, everyone is so different that you can't really put one person in a box. Like, if you think about, like...
Which is why we keep adding letters on.
Yeah, like, if you think about, like, an analogy that I made up that I like to go by is, like, my eyes are brown, right? But there's so much more to them.
There's
and, like,
so many more colors.
Your eyes are green.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to, like, it's hard, you know?
Yeah, so for you personally, you don't necessarily like to identify as strongly with the preset labels that have already been kind of chosen for the community.
No, not personally, but when people ask, like, the closest label that I go by is either bisexual or pansexual.
Okay.
Or just queer, because I don't know. I'm still discovering
I've noticed a lot lately that instead of LGBTQ, that's just LGBT. Yeah. What do you think of that?
I don't know. I mean, like, I think people just are kind of lazy and don't want to say more, so the shorter you can keep something, the better. Like, usually, like, instead of saying, I go to Arizona State University, you say you'd go to ASU. So it's kind of like that, but I don't know. I like saying the Q plus to try to keep it as inclusive as possible, because...
When I was younger and we first heard LGBTQ, the Q was for questioning, but I've also heard some people say that it stands for queer. Mm-hmm. And do you guys hear that a lot, like where people are kind of unsure what that stands for?
Yeah. People usually say like queer / questioning or vice versa. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually think if you like look up the whole acronym, I do think there's two Qs, and one is for questioning and one is for queer.
Oh, okay. So I always wondered about that, what it was actually intended to be. Mm-hmm. And I like that now there's a plus, because I've, heard some people like, well, let's add, a letter for asex. Let's add a letter for people that are, just going on and on. People that identify by more than one, like, let's add more. And it's just like getting to a point where, like you said, it's going to be like, we can't even say this. Yeah, like, hang really on, let me pull out my big thing of acronym.
You need to come up with one word for everything.
Yeah, but I like the plus at the end, because I think that, but I know some people, the reason they wouldn't really like that plus is it's like, oh, I'm just a plus sign, like everybody else has a letter.
Yeah.
So it's so hard with this, but you were talking about labels and how you don't like them.
Right.
So why would you not necessarily consider yourself bi and you would consider yourself more, pan, or why would neither of those labels really fit you personally?
That's a good question. I think it's just because, like, one, it's really hard to, like, come down to what each label truly means. And bisexual and pansexual get confused a lot. Mm-hmm. What I personally believe is, like, bisexual is just the two genders, but pansexual is the two genders and everything in between.
Yes.
And I think that I don't really fit either one because, one, like, I usually only gravitate toward the two genders, if that makes sense. But then again, I never know who I could fall
You
in
don't
love
close
with.
yourself off.
I never know. You never know, you know? It's just, and when people ask me about, like, why I feel this way, I usually just tell them, like, I'm I'm attracted to, like, people's souls, and, like, the outside is just, it's just, like,
the
a
package
plus.
they come in.
Yeah. So,
that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that people's perception is also kind of why you don't want to choose a label? Is you
Yes.
don't want people to put an automatic
Yes.
picture of exactly who they think you are?
And myself as well, if that makes sense. Like, I don't like putting a label on myself.
I can understand that.
'Cause-
I think it's kind of hard when it comes to individuals who could be in the bisexual realm, because there's been a lot of talk lately of bisexual visibility, because a lot of people will look past and just say, well, are you gay or are you not gay? Are you straight? Like, what's the
Right.
deal? Are you just into girls as a phase and you're really actually just straight? Like, you're just going through college. And some people get really frustrated because they're like, no, if I'm dating a guy, it doesn't mean I'm straight suddenly. Like, if they're female, they're like, I'm not suddenly straight, I'm still bisexual.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard, because it's like, you don't want to say, like, no, you don't want to encourage people to not think of bisexuality as being as important as the other identities, but at the same time, if it doesn't fit you, you don't want to force yourself to be in that label just to try and, pick a letter. You don't want to be like, okay, well, where do I fit on the spectrum? Because some people don't really fit specifically on that spectrum. So I think it's important to make sure you're not just like, oh, well, I guess I'm just this, so you can put a name to me. I also think it's very interesting how hung up some people get on wanting to know.
Yeah.
Because why does it matter if somebody is like, I'm sure you get that sometimes, they're like, well, are you bi? Like, why are you pan? Like, I don't understand why you don't want to put a label on it. And it's like, well, why are you so interested? Are you wanting to date me? Or are you just really up in my business for no reason? I find that same thing with people that are non-binary. Somebody will be like, oh my God, I don't know if that's a boy or a girl. I'm like, I don't know, but they have nice shoes. Well, but is it a boy or a girl? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to ask them. I'm like, that's kind of rude.
Have fun with that.
I'm not
Good
really
luck.
sure. I'm not really sure why you want to know so bad, but or I'll overhear conversations with like, I can't tell if that's a boy or a girl, and it's really derogatory, and you can tell there's like, I'm judging the fact that I can't automatically tell your gender, and it's making me upset. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you want to know somebody else's gender so badly if you're not personally, romantically, or sexually interested in this person.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why do you need to know? Do you guys find that you run into that a lot with people questioning you as soon as they find out that you identify as LGBTQ+? They're like, oh, okay, well, how? Why? Let me get in your business.
Definitely.
Do you find that can open you up?
I also get a lot of jokes with
Really?
pansexuality. Yeah, like just making like pan jokes, and it's
so
just
you're
like,
into pans? Ha ha ha.
yeah, you like kitchenware? It's like,
it's not funny.
Haha, like you got me.
You're like, those kitchen tongs, they're my favorite. Love them.
You also brought up the like subject of one group in the LGBT. Oh my gosh, I can't even say the LGBTQ community. Like the importance.
Yeah.
Like certain groups feel like they should
marginalized.
Yeah, or more important. That's something that really bugs me, and I think that, and especially like when people start attacking others for their beliefs. Like, I don't know how to explain this.
No, I get what you're saying though.
Like if someone was more conservative and someone in the LGBTQ community were more
liberal.
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Liberal, and like they start attacking them. I think that's such like a contradictor.
I understand what you're
saying.
It's
a contradiction, yeah.
Yeah, like that
really
like
really
you're both
bugs
on the
me.
same side, but then you have to find something to argue about within, and it's just like, shouldn't we be on the same side here?
Like the whole community is about peace and like respecting everyone, and it's just like it contradicts everything that we try to become productive in.
I think that can become a problem in any type of, I wouldn't say LGBTQ plus is really a small community, but compared to, you know, the majority, it is considered a minority still. It's still a smaller part of the overall population. Whenever you have a community like that, the desire to become so uniform can almost be like a soldier mentality where it's like we all have to be on the same page, the same step. We have to have the same lingo, the same clothing the same, likes the same, dislikes. We have to be 100% on the same page, and I think that's a little bit dangerous because it can create kind of that like mob mentality of like, let's all just do this one thing, think this one thing without having our own individual personal thoughts.
Yeah.
And you understand why, though. It's because when sometimes it can feel like so many people are against you, you really have to stick together. But at the same time, it's hard not to lose your individuality in that. Do you guys ever feel like sometimes there's pressure on you to be gay enough? Like, are you...
Yes,
definitely.
of course, yes.
Like, are you wearing enough rainbow today?
Yeah,
Do you
seriously.
present yourself in such a way that is identifiable?
Or, like, only people of a certain sexuality are allowed to have leadership positions in certain organizations, that kind of thing. It's like, oh my goodness.
Or
so
something.
Because you're not gay enough, you wouldn't, how dare you want to be a president of this organization when you...
Definitely.
Yeah, you feel that sometimes?
Yeah, like, I feel like, my style is pretty androgynous anyway, so, like, sometimes, like, it's usually just a t-shirt and shorts, but I do like to wear makeup, obviously, because it's, like, it's a creative, outlet for me, and I've just always loved makeup, and, like, hair dye and stuff, and I think it's kind of, like, when I wear a lot of makeup or a dress or something, someone's like, oh, like I mean,
you're
you
too
could wear
feminine?
like you could wear, a suit to prom. I'm like, or I could wear a cute dress that I like,
So as soon as somebody finds out you're a lesbian, they get a certain idea of you.
Yeah.
They expect you to come out. You do already have shorter hair, so they expect that you're going to want to dress in a more masculine fashion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely not you.
Yeah.
Because I've seen you in everything from no makeup, gym shorts, and like a tight shirt to where I tease her. I was like, oh, my little brother's here today.
Yeah.
Or for those that haven't figured it out yet, she's my little sister. Or there's some days where you come in like full face of makeup, in a dress, in heels, like dolled up, or sometimes it's something in between. It's different variations of that, and I don't think it should change anything. I don't think people should view you differently, but unfortunately, because of the way that we do perform gender, I think that very much is something people have these preconceived notions of, like, well, if you're gay, shouldn't you look this way? Shouldn't you like this? And it's like, yeah, I wouldn't trust her with a power tool. She's not that kind of a lesbian.
Trust me with a power
No,
tool
do not think she's going to chop down a tree. She'll cut off your finger.
Oh, I would cut off my own finger. I'd probably accidentally, like, chop it.
I have trusted you with, like, a screwdriver, and you've still managed to stab yourself. I'm like, good thing we didn't give her the drill.
Yeah, or like they're like, oh, so you watch a lot of sports, right? And I'm like, I hate sports except for figure skating, but thanks. Yes, I know everything about football. Well, obviously.
About what age did you guys start discovering that you maybe were not you identified with LGBTQ, or that you weren't what would be considered straight or a heterosexual person?
That I get that question a lot, and it's kind of hard to pin down. But for as long as I can remember, I never really thought that loving the same gender or finding the same gender was like weird.
So probably
I'd say,
for a
like,
long time it was something natural to you that you didn't even realize.
Yeah, and it wasn't until around like mid-elementary school that I started to hear the word gay being used as an insult.
Yes.
And then I believe that I got a little brainwashed to believe that, like, oh, I couldn't be that. I just
think she's pretty, but it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And then I'd say around like sixth grade-ish, I started talking to people who had experiences, romantic experiences with the same gender, and I was like, oh, maybe I am. And then I'd say around 7th grade, I knew for sure that I at least liked the same gender and the opposite gender.
So from a very young age, what about you?
I feel like it's kind of like the point where you realize you don't want to be Katy Perry, you're in love with Katy Perry. And, like, you think when you're little, you're like, oh my god, I want to be that person. I find that a lot in the LGBTQ plus community. It's really funny, because a lot of people are like, I literally want to be I wanted to be this person when I was little. And then when I grew up and realized that I was gay, I wanted to date that person.
And I would say with you, growing up as your older sister, I noticed the opposite. When you would tell me that you thought boys were cute, it used to drive me insane, because I'm like, no, you want to be him. You don't think he's cute. You think he's really cool, and you want his outfit, and you want to play that role in a movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And it would drive me crazy because she'd be like, I think he's cute too. When she was little, she'd be like, all the celebrities I had a crush on. I'm like, no, I have a crush on him. You want to be him. And my mom was always like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, Rachel doesn't like boys.
Like,
And
now.
I knew that from a young age, but I never said anything to her because I didn't want to, put any sort of pressure or anything on her.
Yeah.
So when she came out to me, I was like, duh.
Yeah.
And she was just like, wait, you knew? Why didn't you tell me? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you you're gay. That's not how it works.
Well, I feel like, too, it was kind of like...
She's like, oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, it was like something more that I realized, like in the 4th grade, I think was the first time I heard the word gay, and I was like, whoa, what does that mean? And someone explained it to me, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I never thought the concept was weird or wrong or anything. Like, it just never...
It was just a different
thing,
type of people having different experiences.
Yeah, and then, like, oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Continue.
Like, I think the 6th grade is kind of when I started figuring out that I would sometimes be
That's what I thought, you started kind of questioning things. I could see the wheels spinning in your head.
Yeah, but I would just be like, oh, no, I just think they're pretty, like, because I can still look at a male and say, like, oh, yeah, he's very attractive, but, like, I'm not romantically attracted to a guy.
I think that's when you started realizing it, because I noticed less of like, oh my god, I'm in love with him, and more just like, hey, this guy's really cool. Like, you would start commenting on like, oh, I love his personality in this. I like what he's wearing. I really like his hair. And I noticed you breaking down what you thought about that person and not talking about them the same way that other girls would.
Yeah.
Like, I would be like, oh my god, he's so cute. Like, oh my god, look at his muscles. You would talk about it differently, and that was when I started to realize that maybe you were kind of thinking there.
Yeah, more like as somebody I admire, like Misha Collins, I really admire.
Yes, you do.
I love him. He's such a king.
Yeah, and throughout school, sexuality wasn't the only thing that I started struggling with.
Oh, same.
Gender also became a like huge, just like fight in my head. It still is today. Like, when I think about it, and I think about the pronouns she, her, that I think that fits me really well, and that's what I like to go by.
Same.
Hence, like. But then when I think about, like, they, them, or he, him, like, I relate to those a lot.
Yeah.
But I also like she, her, so it's always just, like, in last night was a really, I don't know why, but I was just thinking a lot last night about this whole thing, and I'm like, well, sometimes I don't feel like I'm feeling emotions that a girl would feel.
Yeah.
I feel like a boy right now. Like, I feel like I'm in the head of a boy.
Yeah.
Or I'm in, like, the mindset of a male right now. And I don't know why I have such a hard time, like, accepting the pronouns they, them. It could honestly just be fear, but as of right now, I'm not sure if that's what I want to go by, or that's just how I feel. I don't know. It's just, it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And that's the thing where it's getting a little bit better, but growing up in a time when gender is so strongly performed, when I was a kid, in some ways it was easier, in some ways it was harder, because it was the 90s and the early 2000s, and I mean, you guys have seen some stuff. You've seen some of the fashions, you've seen some of the makeup.
Oh yeah.
No one was expected to look the way we did. We didn't have YouTube tutorials. We all plucked our eyebrows till they were like one freaking hair. Like, mine are still recovering from the 90s. My eyebrows are still mad at me for that. And it was very easy. Like, you just took your Bath and Body Works roll-on glitter, covered yourself in it, stuck your little fake, like, those earring things on your ears and on your face. You stuck them all over. You wore a crop top and you were good. Like, you didn't really have to try hard, but you were still, and grunge was still kind of a thing. So women could wear, like, big, like, Jinko pants and, like, boy pants. Like, what was really in was called boyfriend pants, and they were just, like, they would fit women, but they were made to look like boys' pants, but still be like small enough at the waist. You didn't have to like super cinch them up. That was it was really fun to play with gender. And then I think around that time, I would say, like, when I was probably towards the end of elementary school, that's when it kind of became like suddenly not cool to dress like a boy. And that's when it was suddenly like, people were like, why are you wearing that? Because I had a lot of hand-me-downs from cousins, and a lot of them were boy cousins that were closer to my size than my female cousins, or they had stuff that was like a little bit more fun that I liked to wear. I didn't really like the hand-me-downs that were like Abercrombie and Fitch or,
Yeah.
American Eagle, whatever. Those I was a little bit like, it's not really my style. So I wore a
Same.
lot of boys' clothing, and that's about the time that it was like, that's not okay, and people started shaming you more for it.
Definitely.
Even though I've pretty much always worn makeup from the time I was very young.
Yeah.
I would wear awful
Same.
like hot pink lipstick in elementary school.
Oh, same.
And they used to try to send me home for it, and mom and dad were like, well, I mean, that's what she wants to do. Like, you can really send her home for it.
Yeah.
But it was funny, like, dressed like a boy, but with like hot pink lipstick and stuff, and that stopped being cool. And instead you were expected to be a little bit better with makeup. You were expected to wear designer clothing. You were expected to fit in kind of a smaller mold.
Yeah, I
I want to say especially when I was in junior high. So that's when it really became, and that's when I really started hearing gay thrown around as a derogatory term. Like, we heard it in elementary school, but it was like the kids that had older siblings would say it.
Yeah.
But then once you got to that age, all of a sudden it was, that's gay, you're gay, everything's gay. And not only was gay used as like stupid, like that's stupid, like that's so gay, but it was also used as intended, but to shame someone for the fact that they might be gay.
Yeah.
That's when it started being like, oh, he's gay. Don't you think he's gay? I heard he's gay. Yeah, I think she's a lesbian. She likes girls. And that's when it became a thing where everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is something shameful. This is something to be ashamed of. And so for my generation, it was really weird because a lot of us were like I had people that I went to school with that you knew from like a long time, like you knew from when they were young that they might not be interested in girls. Like certain boys, it was like, I don't think they like girls. The older they got, the more that kind of became apparent. But I feel like for my generation, it was a little bit difficult. It wasn't as difficult as earlier ones, but it was like you still had that voice in your head of whenever you wanted to maybe come out that you still had that, like, that's so gay. Yeah, didn't you know he was gay? Yeah, I told you he was gay. I knew he was gay. That kind of thing rattling around in your head. Whereas now I think there's a little bit more support for younger individuals because the people who are older are realizing, like, I would have liked to have that when I was a kid. They don't have to struggle. We can actually make this a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you guys still run into a lot of ignorance being
a
red state.
I think that it's like half and half. Like both sides have gotten better and it's gotten a lot worse.
Yeah, definitely.
And especially now with like, we have all these YouTube tutorials. We know how to do makeup really well. So it's like, you're expected to perform a gender. You're supposed to be very feminine, very masculine. Or if you're gay, you're expected to be very flamboyant. If you're a lesbian, you're supposed to be very masculine. And it's like, you have, the fact that people are being more open about it, but they're like, oh, you're gay? Okay, do you want to be my gay best friend? Wait, why aren't you acting like I think you should? Because I know some individuals who are male, who are gay, and they're not flamboyant. They don't come across as anything other than some people would have no idea until one day they're like, oh, this is my boyfriend. And people are like, what?
Yeah.
It's just like, you don't have to be performative to be who you are.
I definitely feel that too. Like, I feel like in a society where everything is so hyper feminine or so hyper masculine, like people expect there to be just black and white. And, there isn't. There's a whole rainbow.
The whole rainbow,
if you will. And it is things like that. Like, there is a lot of ignorant people. Like, if you do dress a little bit more masculine and you're a female, you will get a lot of weird or judgmental looks. Or if you do vice versa, like if you dress a little bit more quote unquote feminine and you're male.
Well, you guys are both still in high school, and I think that's one of the hardest times.
Definitely.
Because when you're younger, you can kind of get away with stuff because everyone's just like, we don't know how to dress ourselves
They're
either.
just being quirky.
Yeah, it's just quirky. Like, I'm wearing my mom's shirt and my dad's pants. Woo! Like, whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
But then when you get older and it's, like, become a little bit more, people are like, what are you doing? Why aren't you fitting into society? That's when it becomes a little bit more, like, you start paying attention to that. So, as high schoolers in 2018, what's that like, being LGBTQ and are you both open at school?
Yes.
Okay, both very, like, most people that know that that's something about you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like that for me personally is something that I usually like to make known pretty early on, like, when I meet people, because, like...
Yes, you do.
Yeah, because, well, here's the thing.
Well, you have your style, you wear a lot of pins and flair and accessories that happen to be, like, a rainbow pattern, or that have something on there that will prompt somebody to ask, like, oh, is that an LGBTQ thing? Yeah, usually. Or, like, if I'm feeling that somebody might not know or something, I might say something about it, because I just, like, I like to let people know, because if somebody's gonna sit there and judge me for, you know, who I am and who I like, they're not worth a friendship. So I'm just kind of like, if it's someone who's gonna be a jerk about it and they say that early on, then I'm like, okay. Well, when did you come out? How long ago? A little over a year ago. I had been, like, I had known since... But you didn't really, did you talk about it in high school? Was it something known that you were questioning, or did you just kind of come out with a bang? Well, it was kind of like, throughout the 7th and 8th grade I was questioning, but I would just kind of, like, denied it a lot. You didn't talk about it, really? Yeah, and then in the 9th grade I came out at school as bi, because that's honestly what I thought I was at the time. And then in the 10th grade I dated a boy. And then about... Yeah, that's canceled, was basically what you told me. Yeah, a couple weeks into that, he texted me and he's like, honestly, are you happy? And I was like, I'm gay. that was literally it. And I felt so bad. But, like, he's a great guy right now. Like, we're friends with him. He's one of my best friends. Honestly. That was such a funny experience for me to watch. Because... For me to watch. Well, no, because I had been telling Mom for years, like, Rachel's gay. And Mom was like, you think so? Really? Yeah. I wouldn't have picked... I would have thought it was the other one. And I'm like, no, it's her. And... The other one? The other sibling. And I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure. And Mom's like, Rachel has a boyfriend. I'm like, but does she? And Mom was like, she does. And I'm like, all right, we'll see how this goes. 2 weeks. And you told me, and I just went, huh. And you were like, what? I was like, oh, nothing. And you were kind of offended at first. Yeah, like, I remember that. Because she was like, huh. And I was like, and what? It was funny because Josh and I, behind your back, were like, how long is this going to last? Yeah. And I remember not that long later, I was like, hey, how's that going? You're like, oh, that's canceled. Like, no, that's done. And I was like, what? Yeah, literally. And you were just like, oh, no, we're not. It didn't work out. Yeah, it was. And he and I looked at each other, and he was like, oh, shit. Like, we gave a look, and he was like, you're right. And I was just like, oh, it didn't work out, huh? But I could tell you didn't want to talk about it. So I was just like, all right, I just let it go. Definitely. And you were like, it just didn't work out. And I'm like, well, are you upset about it? Like, and nope. You were like, no, I feel fine. I'm like, yeah. All right. That's all, like, I need to know. Like, I was just like, are you okay? Do you want to talk? Like, is it a sad breakup? And you were just like, nope. Like, all right, that's exactly what I thought. Yeah. Cool. I feel like it was kind of funny because literally, like, after I texted him that, I didn't know what to do. And so I was like, I have to tell a friend, and I just didn't know who. And it was really funny because I literally clicked the second contact who I had contacted under him, and it was my friend Emmy, and I was just like, hi, I'm gay. And I sent a picture of the screenshot of the text to her, and she's like, oh, okay, that's cool. She's like, good for you. And then literally the next day at school, I was like, hi, everybody, I'm gay. How are you today? Because that was kind of the big moment for you where you had sort of thought about it before, but it didn't seem to fit until all of a sudden you were faced with, like, the reality of, no. I think that question really just, like, when he said that, it literally, like, the light bulb in my head just went bing, and I was like, oh. And so that was kind of the big moment for me where I realized, I think, completely, and, like, completely understood and completely came to terms with it. Because, like I said, I had been thinking about it, but it was, like, more something that I repressed inside myself. Because I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm straight as a board. I think a lot of that, do you think that was due to pressures you felt? I kind of think so, yeah. And, like, growing up in a more conservative household with, especially, I wouldn't say, like, immediate family, but extended family members. Definitely. I know that sometimes there can be a lot of pressure, and I know for a long time, you didn't really deal with conflict well, because you do get a little bit more emotional.
Oh, I still don't, but yeah.
Well, I think you have learned to deal with it better.
It's gotten a lot better, yeah.
But I think that can also contribute to why you want to tell people right away, because you're like, if I'm going to have this argument, I'm going to have it right here, right now.
Pretty much.
I'm not going to have this argument down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much, yeah.
What about you, Casey? Do you feel like you've had a similar, or was your experience very different?
Well, starting out with, like, the whole telling people immediately, personally, I don't like to do that, just because I feel like it's not something that should, I mean, at least in the future, I want it to become something that isn't different.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you meet someone that's straight, do they come up to you and say, "Hi, I'm straight"?
Generally, no.
No, right?
Not always.
And
but
I
sometimes.
just, I don't know, I'd rather, like, them just figure it out naturally
Yeah.
with my experience.
Well,
Yeah.
especially being to where you don't necessarily go by a specific label, that could get complicated too, where you're trying to explain it to somebody and it's like, this is a lot of information for me to give you right off the bat, because it can be more personal to you. You
I'd
would
rather
have to
them-
explain
yeah.
something that's a bit personal to somebody that you don't necessarily know very well.
Right, I'd rather them just get to know me and just have them learn along the way, just as I would learn about them
More
along the way.
organically.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, yeah, it bugs me that people in the LGBTQ community have to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
That's
It
something
shouldn't
that
be
I
a
want
thing.
to die over time
Yeah.
because it's just,
With your family, was it difficult, or did you have a fairly like easy time? Is it still something that's difficult?
I found that the only really difficult thing was with myself and accepting it myself, because my mom grew up with a lot of friends who were gay, and she would tell me all these stories, like good stories about like how she'd get like stuck in love triangles and stuff with them, and it was just yeah. So she had a good experience with that in high school, and my dad actually has a very close family member who
So sorry, I was like, did you hear that bubble in my
Yes.
throat? I
That
was
was
fairly
funny.
certain the microphone picked that up.
It definitely did. That was funny.
This is like look of horror on my face. Sorry, guys.
he has a very close family member who is now in my life who is gay. So they both had experience and understood firsthand
Yeah,
or secondhand.
Nice.
So that was good. I think it was just my not only going through like a bunch of other emotional things with myself, but that on top of it was really stressful. So yeah, I got a lot of shame telling my parents, even though I felt comfortable and loved and like I would be accepted.
Oh yeah, same.
It's still just like that fear of like, oh, well, what if?
Yeah.
And that slim chance that
Yeah.
it might not go as
Yeah.
expected.
Mhm.
And I think that too was something that kind of kept me and it keeps a lot of others from coming out to their family for like a long time, because friends are usually more accepting. Like you usually assume that your friends are going to be more accepting than your family members. You think it's not as hard to come out as to friends. At least in my opinion, that was, like how I felt. So like telling my family, I was like, well, I know they're going to be accepting, but what if they aren't? And like also the whole not wanting coming out to be a thing. Like why do I have to do that? Was
Why
kind
is
of something-
heterosexuality the norm?
Yeah.
The default setting.
The
Why is
default.
straight the default, to quote Love Simon.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was kind of something too that held me back for a long time. So it was like 6 months before I came out to the family.
And I think it wasn't as bad as you thought.
Oh,
Well, I
not
mean,
in
when
the
you came out
slightest.
to me, I just went, uh-huh, and what did you want? We were like in a drive-thru or something, and you were like, I have to tell you something. I'm gay. And I was like, yeah, like a lesbian? You were like, yeah. And I was like, okay, do you want fries with that? And you're like, what?
The
I was
car.
Like, and I was like, no. Like,
Coming out in the car.
your food.
Oh my
Like,
God.
do you want fries with that? And she was like, did you hear me? I'm gay. And I was like, okay, Gaby, what do you want in your Happy Meal? And you were just like, wait, you're not, you were, like, expecting something. And I was just like, I know. And you just yelled, you knew? And I was like, we are in a drive-thru, like, ready to take the order. And she's just like, you knew? Like, out the window, the guy's like, can I help? What would you guys like?
Rip
You
that
don't have
poor
rainbow
teenager.
fries, do you?
That's actually so funny that so many coming out stories happen in the car.
It's a thing
Like
that-
so many people that we have met in our GSA at our school.
It's a joke that we
Almost
have in GSA.
everyone has come out in the car. I'm pretty sure the way that I came out to my mom I'm like 99% sure because there are so many different like little things. But I remember I was coming home from, I think it was freshman year, I was coming home from school, and I got in the car, and she was like, "How did your day go?" And I was like, "Oh, pretty good. I got into a relationship," and she was like, "Oh, with who?" And I was like, "A girl." And she was like, "Oh, all right." Like, it was kind of a bad reaction. I think it was just because, like,
Unexpected.
yeah, and she's also really afraid of me being bullied at school.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really afraid of that now. And
Mm-hmm.
I never really have been, except for, like, junior high and elementary school. But our high school it's weird. There's a lot of hateful people, but I'm not afraid to stand up for myself.
Same.
So I think that's why she had a semi-bad
It was
reaction.
more worry. It
was
wasn't
more
like,
worry.
yeah.
Like, it seemed bad, like she didn't want me to be in a relationship with a girl, but it wasn't because of her own personal beliefs. It was just like she wanted to protect me.
She just saw, she's like,
Yeah.
I know what kind of shit you're gonna get, and she didn't
Yep.
want you to be experienced that. And I think that's a big thing for a lot of parents that are, and family members that are very supportive. Like I've said to you before, Rachel, I'm like, you need to be aware of who is around you.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, hide your rainbow flag, don't let it fly. I'm saying be aware of the reactions you're getting, because you have to judge how quick that person that's just talking shit is going to turn into that person shoving you, hitting you, doing something
Exactly.
to you. And I'm not saying, don't be yourself, but if you notice something, get out of the situation.
Yeah.
Call me. Don't get into, don't get into an argument with somebody because
Don't
you can't
engage.
fix stupid sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really good though because our school has come up with a no bullying, like
Zero
no tolerance.
That's very good.
Yeah, I know some teachers who are still just a little iffy, but for the most part, I've seen our school grow and become a lot more productive. And this was the first year that we had a very strong and official GSA, and I'm really proud to be a part of that. But
Same.
And that's GSA stands for
Gay Straight Association.
Okay. And yours is, I think, is it sponsored by GLSEN?
No, but we do a lot of work with the GLSEN, like the program, which stands for Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. And
so they work with you guys a little bit?
Yeah,
Yes.
they do. They will give us, like, they'll put lessons online, they'll email them to our teacher sponsor, they will have people from GLSEN that come in and talk, they'll give us a lot of
They're a
lesson plans and
nationwide group,
activities.
right?
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know if it's every state, but I think in the main cities there are.
Yeah, I
like
think
the main capitals.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It is
So,
really cool.
do you think being out at school it's not as difficult as you would have expected, or is it just as difficult?
I think it depends,
Yeah.
but I think it's easier than a lot would think.
Like
Yeah.
now in this day and age, it's easier
Yes.
than...
Definitely. I feel like there's a lot of kids who are ignorant about it, and there are some kids that get upset by things like that, but I haven't personally experienced a ton of kids who would act in a violent way towards someone who's in the
that's
LGBTQ plus community. I do know a girl who, she just cut her hair, but she had cut most of her hair like I did, all of, like, really short, and she got shoved in the hallway and called really bad things, but yeah. So, I mean, that's the only time I had ever heard of violence towards an LGBTQ plus student in our school.
I think the only bullying that I've seen was last year during
Oh yeah.
oh
I
my gosh,
forgot about
help
that.
me.
The Day of
Day of
Silence.
Silence.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and honestly, it probably seems like the opposite, but I feel like people are more vulnerable in groups.
Yeah.
And
because then you're identifiable.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I think it's really important though when you see that type of thing or you experience that type of thing is not to react in the same way, like violent, or continue to argue. I think educating them is the best way to deal with that. Like,
Exactly.
if someone calls you a fag and they think that it's, really mean, and you're like, well, do you actually know what that means? Why is that funny?
That's my favorite ADL
Why is that
tactic.
offensive? Right?
You're like, explain this to me.
Or
I'm
you're
a
so
little
gay.
confused.
Yeah. Okay.
I know.
Yes, and you're so straight.
I feel like you're ever so straight.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
sorry.
Speaking of education, so I know you guys in particular, you're in clubs, you're in GSA clubs, you're getting information from GLSEN, but do you think that your school in general has any sort of education program? Or, I mean, you said you have anti-bullying. Is there any sort of like anti-bullying education directly for LGBTQ plus community?
Not particularly for LGBTQ plus, but we do have a program at my school called ADL, which I'm actually in. It stands for Anti-Defamation League. It actually was started, I don't know when. I believe it was started in the 1940s. That's probably wrong, but
No, I believe you might be right, actually.
But it was started as an actual, like, an non-anti-Semitism program.
Yes.
Because
You can still see the old video that they originally created.
There was a lot of problems with that, so ADL was created for that. But now we really just cover like the entirety of no bullying, like towards anybody, like no matter what race, gender, sexual orientation.
I'd say that the only place that, you know, education about the community that the school has is our GSA.
Yeah, specific to LGBTQ+.
The Anti-Defamation League was actually founded in 1913.
Dang.
But you're thinking of the very famous video that there is out there. That's the during the 1930s, 1940s. That's when we were at war.
Yeah, and like that was a program I remember being very effective when I was a freshman, and I had the students come in and teach the classes every week. I was like, wow, I really like this. I like the whole no bullying policy.
Yes.
I like the acceptance policy. So I became a peer trainer, and I became like one of the people who goes into the classes and talks about that every week. And I think it's a really great experience.
Oh, so you do go into different classrooms?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not necessarily something somebody has to sign up for to be able to get a little bit of education, at least in some way.
Yeah, all the freshman classes have to have it. It's like in the science classes. So we have first semester and second semester, and each semester a different group gets assigned to a different class. So each freshman bio class gets a lesson every Wednesday. Good. We get the whole class period.
As far as sex education goes, I don't know if you guys have any form of that in high school. When I was at that same school, you got it in something called safety ed, which was a driver safety class, and also random sex ed. It was very weird.
I don't think so.
We don't get taught like sex ed, but we get
At
taught
all?
like,
oh my gosh.
No, we get taught reproduction in biology. Like,
and is there any information at all on anything other than heterosexual?
Nope, no, not in the slightest.
So that's the only kind of relationships that you're like learning about in your textbooks or in your classroom.
Yeah, and I believe, you can Google this and check me on it, but I do believe actually in the state of Arizona it is illegal to teach LGBTQ plus sex ed.
That would be something I've never heard. That would be, I mean, I would love to say I'm surprised, but I am not surprised.
I think it is true.
The only sex ed that I've received was in junior high, but I feel like that's not enough.
It was actually
especially in high school.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. When you were taught that, was there anything other than heterosexual relationships?
No, and it was completely abstinence too. Like, was literally the program abstinence, and they've found, I do know this is true, science has found that in schools where abstinence is taught, there's a higher teen pregnancy rate and like teen STI rate than there is in schools that teach.
Yes, that's
the irony.
And so the program honestly just sucked. Like, it was just some lady who came in basically and was like, don't have sex. It's like the Mean Girls movie.
And then shows you pictures of scary STDs.
You're actually correct.
I knew it.
As at least of this article is written, it's a New Times article, a Phoenix New Times article from January 2016.
Okay.
And it says, for years, Arizona has been one of only a handful of states in the country. Awesome, Arizona. That prohibits educators from discussing homosexuality during sex education classes.
Yep, knew it.
Is there reasoning to that?
No, this was written because at that time there was a bill to eliminate that language that was in the Constitution, the state Constitution, stating that was illegal. There was, this wasn't even a bill to get sex education into schools. It's just to eliminate the illegality of actually teaching it.
Yeah.
Wow. That was Senate Bill 1019. So I don't think that passed, and I'm sure
it did not. Yeah, it's pretty pathetic that they can't, like, get their crap together and, you know, sign some sort of bill now. Like, I feel like that needs to be being passed into Congress every year. I mean, I'd go as far to say every few months. We need to pass something like that to try and get sex ed for students who are something other than heterosexual, because, like, we exist. And
even if oh my gosh, that's just so frustrating. Even if they don't believe in it, it still needs to be passed, because so many people are, like, exposed to danger.
Yeah, like,
and won't be educated on how they can prevent it.
Yeah,
I know.
Like,
that's what frustrates me. Is I remember sex ed was just such a joke when I was in school. It didn't really it was all scare tactics. I mean,
same.
At least ours, when I took it in high school, it wasn't like abstinence only, but it was abstinence preferable. I don't know if that's a real term. I think I just made it up. Cool. But it was very much trying to scare you, like, you will get the gonorrhea. Your vagina will rot and it will fall off. And it was just picture after picture of, like,
literally the
people that were
movie.
like, basically it was like, oh, I have an infection. Oh, I have an STD. I'm gonna leave it. I'm gonna leave it for a few years. Like, those are the pictures
gonorrhea.
they showed us. Yeah.
Don't have sex.
It was just like,
don't have sex, because if you do, you will get pregnant.
You will get the gonorrhea.
And you will die. And it was just like the most intense. It's like, look at this penis that's wilted and looks like a mushroom, and you're like,
they can't show pictures of, like, genitalia anymore, but they'll show it.
We
like,
saw all sorts of fun stuff.
They'll show herpes on somebody's mouth or, like, eye or something.
Oh
but
my
it's
gosh.
like, it's just so stupid, because, like, I know a lot of people who are in the community who think, oh, well, just because, you know, like, whether they're male or female, they're like, well, I can't get anyone pregnant, or I can't get pregnant, so I have nothing to worry about.
They don't think that they need any protection.
No, you do. STIs are still a thing that exist for both genders, and, like, no matter what sexuality you are, STIs are still something that everyone has to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Everybody, yes. And I think that's why it's so frustrating to hear that you guys still don't have any sort of, even, like, a nod of the tiniest bit of information, because it's like, I think luckily this generation is a little bit better about researching things online, when it's like, well, I can just Google it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we live in that generation, which is nice, because I think, you know, maybe you can prompt your friends like, no, you can. And they're like, whatever, let me Google it. Oh shit, I can. And they have access to all of this information. But for some individuals that are under the age of 18 that are living in their parents' house, they might not have access. Their parents might be watching what they're doing on the internet. They don't have access to looking this up at school. But that doesn't mean their parents are watching them 24/7 and know that they're not sexually active, and know that they're not putting themselves in potential danger that they don't know exists, because they've never been warned, or the people that are telling them, sometimes they might not believe it because it's coming from another kid like them. It's not from an adult saying, no, here's real medical evidence. So I think that that's just so incredibly detrimental, and I think it also does intentionally marginalize and continue to ignore individuals who are LGBTQ and pretend they don't exist. Like, here's some sex ed on only heterosexual, homosexuals don't exist. We're just going to pretend that that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And I think that can add to part of this shame that some people can feel, and the questioning and the confusion, because it's like, is this even valid?
Yeah, and, like, I know a lot of people, too, who are like, you tell them something and they're like, I didn't know that. And you're like, how? Like, doesn't everyone know this? And they're like, it's something that they never thought to, like, ask themselves. They never thought to ask Google or whatever. They never thought to talk to their parents or siblings about. Like, it's just something that they don't know. Or, like you said, there are kids whose parents watch their phones 24/7, which I think is kind of bullcrap.
And there can even be parents that want to give their children who they know are LGBTQ a good sex education, but they feel ill-equipped because it's not something they've had experience with. They might still feel a little awkward about it, and they don't know your comfort level, and they're struggling with how are they supposed to teach it. And it would be nice if, you know, they could actually have the school do that. It's like you learn about other things. A lot of people are saying, well, the school shouldn't be responsible for teaching people about sex education. the school is responsible for teaching us about all sorts of things.
Exactly.
If the school's not responsible for teaching us about that, what, then why do we have schools? Why doesn't everybody just get homeschooled? Why don't our parents be responsible? Well, because we found out that some parents are not equipped to teach their children.
Yeah.
That's the reason you go to a school with other individuals from different walks of life, and you learn about all sorts of things that you might not know about. Especially when you get older and you go into college, you can learn all sorts of things. But the problem is, once a lot of people are in college and they're away from their parents and they're in the dorms and they've never had any sort of sex education, and now they're out going, well, I can't get pregnant, screw this.
Yeah.
And, well, I'm a girl with another girl. How am I going to get pregnant? Next thing they know, they have an STI or STD, and they don't know how or why. And they may be so ill-equipped, they may not even know.
Yeah.
And they may just think like, oh, well, this is weird, but whatever. Maybe I should just stop wearing tight pants. And it's like, they're not equipped to even know the signs of, hey, something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very frustrating. But hopefully that's something that now, 2018, I feel like it's just so hard for me because it's like, I haven't been out of high school for that long, but I've been out long enough that it's like, I kind of lose touch with some of that. And it's like, I have to remind myself of how difficult certain things were and of how the overall environment and mentality can be living in a state that's a little bit more conservative. And the high school you guys go to is in an area that has a lot of people who have conservative religious views.
Yeah.
And that can also really add and complicate the issue. So sometimes I have to remember that and think, oh, okay, that makes sense. We are going to have to work a little bit harder at this. That's something that I can't forget just because I'm not in high school. Doesn't mean it's not a problem for others that are still in high school, that are still experiencing that. So I think it's good to, remind people that are older than you, like, hey, did you get sex ed? We didn't. And, have them be like, oh, wow, this is still happening? Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's good that we remember, wow, my words aren't happening now. That we remember that.
That makes me feel a lot more comfortable and a little bit more protected, knowing that there are adults that are older than us who want to help. Because a lot of times it feels like it's just the youth that are trying to make a difference, and that can make it really feel just too difficult and too hard. So
a big part of that is what I've talked to about people is what the community that I'm really involved with would be the chronic illness community and the invisible illness community, because that's something that affects me personally. And it's a community that a lot of other people may not be a part of, and it's not something I blame them for, but it's like, well, yeah, when it's not happening to you, it's not on your mind every day, you're not thinking about it. And it can be so easy for people, even people that have children or friends or family that are LGBTQ, to not really think about the other smaller issues. They're thinking about the big issues, like, are they allowed to get married? Are they going to get kicked out of a store for going in and asking for a wedding cake? Things like that are in the news that are big issues, but sometimes they forget, oh yeah, I remember when I was a kid and everything sucked, and I remember there's shitty sex ed, and oh, LGBTQ kids, they probably don't get any education. And it's sometimes you do have to remind the adults around you, hey, this, that's why it's not that they're not thinking about it, and it's not that the adults don't care, it's that they're just oh shit, I forgot I have to care about that. There's a lot of issues going on right now, the Red for Ed movement. I'm not in school anymore. I don't have children, and I don't plan on ever having children, but I am still very much for making sure that the education system is supported.
Oh yeah,
and the reason for that is, first off, you guys are still in it. Yeah. And even when you're not, those kids, those pain in the ass kids, are going to grow up to be pain in the ass adults if they're not taught, if they don't have the proper resources. If we have a bunch of kids that are just morons because the teachers didn't have the resources to properly teach them, and their classrooms were overstaffed and kids were just running around screaming wild, and we don't have good quality teachers because we refuse to pay them. I remember having to sit on a floor in a classroom for a while in high school because they didn't have a desk for me. So we just didn't have desks. And it was are you kidding me? This is not a poor school at all by any means. There's no reason for this.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing is just I don't have kids, but I'm going to have to deal with everybody else's kids. And I want us to give them what they need. So it's just because somebody isn't part of your community doesn't mean that they don't want to help out. They may be oh my gosh, I just didn't think about it. And it's definitely something that you guys can, not feel oh, nobody cares. Definitely try to reach out to people, especially your parents, and then they can reach out to other parents and be hey, let's, maybe see what we can do about getting this.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, though, that it's at least getting a little bit better for you guys. And I think you're both a lot more comfortable with yourselves than, you know, some individuals that are your age that are struggling. Do you have any suggestions for kids that are in high school or even younger that are maybe questioning or that are going to come out? Do you have any advice you would give them?
I think it's all up to that person.
Yeah.
Like, when they feel it's right to come out, it's all up to them. And I think that it's a really big waste of time to focus on all of the negatives, whether they come from yourself or from others, because if you think about it, it's their life, and I think it's just so much better to face your fears. And that sounds so cheesy, but like,
no, it's true,
face your fears, because it's your life, and the longer that you spend dwelling on the negatives, the less time you're gonna have to be happy.
Actually live your life.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as like oh my gosh, a 100% accurate label.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's
don't get hung up on the details.
Yeah, don't get hung up on the
yourself.
Yeah, and just learn about yourself as you grow up, because it's so stressful to try to slap a label on yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so much better to just, you know.
So I think, hey, remember when I said turn your phone off?
I did. It's an alarm.
So I think that's kind of like, don't feel the need to have all the answers. It's okay to say, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
You can still be part of the community and not know where specifically you fit in the community. Just know that you're a part of it.
Yeah, because even with me, like, I just like to tell myself when I get stressed out about trying to figure out who I am, I'm like, you're just Casey. Like, the only label that will ever be completely accurate is your name. Yeah. Unless you want to change that, then, like, change it. But, like,
change your name if you don't feel it's
people
accurate.
Are like, oh, so, like, what do you go by? I'm like, Casey.
Literally. Yeah.
I think that's really good for everybody. You know, sometimes we all get so caught up with labels and who we are and where we fit in society and groups, and it's just like, you're just yourself. You're exactly who you've always been and who you're going to be.
Yeah, and I feel like another thing is you're never, ever, ever alone. There's never.
Yeah, you will
no
always
matter
find someone.
Who you are, no matter, you know, what you identify as, no matter anything, really. Like, you are never alone. There's always other people who are like you, and there's always people who care about you, always.
And even if you don't have access to people that are like you within your immediate community, there's still people that will stand up for you. Just because, you know, you don't see somebody like you doesn't mean that people can't try to understand. Exactly. And you shouldn't be afraid to let people in. You know, sometimes people build up walls because they're like, well, you're not me, you're not like me.
Yeah.
It's like, let people in.
And I feel like that's something that everyone always needs to remember, because even I forget sometimes that there's always someone there for you. Like, no matter what you're going through, there's always going to be somebody there. And you need to stop being so worried about the fact that you think you're alone, because you never are. And I think, too, another thing is, like, don't get so hung up on the what ifs. Like a lot of people do. Like, if you want to come out and you know you're in a safe environment where, you know, your parents aren't going to hurt you, or your peers and siblings. Or you're not
going to be without a house to live in.
You need to obviously make sure you're in a safe environment. And if you are in a safe environment and you're able to come out, try not to get so hung up on the what ifs and, like, the negatives of things. Like Casey said, like, just try to focus on the positives, because I will say, like, from experience, after coming out, everything is so much better, and, like, you're able to be your 100% authentic self, and you're able to do what you want to, like, participate in activities that you would like to, or, you know, just...
And I think sometimes you'd be surprised how the people close to you react.
Yeah.
For instance, you had a close family member that it seemed like would maybe not be okay with it, was one of those people that years ago was like, well, I think gay people are just choosing to be gay. And then kind of went from like, okay, I think gay people are born that way, but they're choosing to act on how they're born.
Yeah.
And that was kind of where this individual was stuck. Just like, well, I'm kind of sort of okay with people being gay, but like, I don't know, do they need to get married? Like, do they need to be gay around me? Like, that's kind of where this person was.
Literally.
And they went from that to within a week after you coming out, telling another family member that's who she is born that way. I don't want to hear anybody say a negative word about it, and I wouldn't have her any other way. She's perfect as she is.
Yeah.
And that is the same individual who now, if anybody says anything, will slap them with a rainbow flag. And
literally.
that's something that I think you didn't anticipate. And so sometimes when you're afraid of how people are going to judge you, realize that your family, if you're in a safe place and they're a good, if they're good people and they love you, they might be mad at you. They might be really mad at you for a while. They're going to get over it. And, if they want you in their life, they may not ever understand, ever. And that's something that's a risk you take. They may not ever fully accept it, but they're going to get over it and they're going to continue to love you.
Yeah.
Right. And, another thing that I think is important, again, is, like, you can be afraid of, like, people who are going to try to hurt you, whether it be family members or at school or just in society. It's better to just take that fear and use it as motivation to educate them when that time comes, because I think that's the most productive thing that you can do in that situation.
Definitely.
Because if you ignore it, then I feel like it just gives them power and they got away with it. But if you educate them and actually try and not change their mind, but give them a little
something
different,
to think about.
A different perspective.
Like, just
it
give
can
them
it can change someone's entire, point.
It can
in
change their lives.
Yeah.
Lives. Yep.
I completely agree with that.
And again, just what I was gonna say was, and like, you will always find a group of people who supports you and loves you. No matter what.
Really great. I'd like to end this episode with some of your pet peeves, because I know some people out there may not have anyone close to them that's in the LGBTQ community, and they may not necessarily know that they may have best intentions but be using the wrong terms, or is there anything that you personally have and that as from other individuals talking to you or others in the community? Casey's raising her hand. What's up, girl?
Yes. It really bugs me when a bisexual person calls themselves gay and someone else hates on them for it.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know. How would you explain that? I feel like
if
they're invalidating how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, like if you feel like attracted to the same gender even somewhat and you want to call yourself gay, go for it.
Yeah.
And
that's like a within the LGBTQ community.
Yeah. Or
I've also heard it outside of the LGBT community. I've also heard individuals okay, last week she was bi, now she's gay, and it's like,
yeah, that bothers me too. Or just people within the community hating on anyone else in the community, like bisexual people. I do know get a lot of hate for who they are, but it's just they're born just the same way as you are. Mm-hmm. If you're born gay, they're born bi. If you're born straight, they're born bi, whatever, a lot of people will say, well, can't you just pick a side? It's no, they're who they are.
It's not a war, guys. That's not how it works.
I feel too, there's a lot of problems with people judging transgender people as well, or
oh my God.
Basically anything that's not gay or straight gets even more judgment than
more. What about outside of the LGBTQ community? Individuals that consider themselves straight or don't consider themselves part of the community. Have you had anything from them, maybe well-meaning, that you're try using this term, or we don't generally,
immediately asking how gay sex works.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh. People still do that.
How do you do that? You're well, that's not for you to know.
Well, we take the tuna fish.
Literally.
Oh, no.
We remove the skin, we get the fillets, and we slap them against each other's faces. That is how the gay sex works.
That's
actually.
all. Yeah.
Oh my God.
If you guys ever want to know, that's it. That's all that happens.
Anytime someone asks, just come up with a new, incredibly interesting thing to tell them.
First, we sacrifice a
goat.
baby goat.
See.
I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry.
First, you have to pluck all the hairs out of your nostrils. You can't have a single hair. That's the first step. Next, and just keep them I'm listening.
Yeah, seriously. Or I feel another huge thing that I literally hate with the whole of my being is both genders do it a lot, but I have noticed it more with men. That's so hot.
Oh,
like, if you say,
my
like, if
God.
you're in a relationship with another female, if they see you holding hands,
Yes,
you
they-
get, like, the
yep.
whistle.
Yes.
You get the, oh my God, that's so hot. Like, oh my
Yep,
God, can
I-
I join you guys sometime? You're
I
like,
had
no.
Like, I don't think you understand how this works.
I was in a relationship with the same gender. This happened like late last year.
Yeah.
We were at the mall and we were approached by an adult male.
Oh, not
And
okay.
he just stood in front of us. We weren't doing anything. We were just literally standing, holding hands in front of the fire.
Oh, I'm
and he was standing
horrified.
behind
Can
us.
You see the look on my face right now?
Yeah,
I'm about to
and we
black out. I'm
turned
so
around
upset.
and we were
telling
like,
me this.
we were like,
I was disgusted.
we were like, can we help you? And he's like, oh no, I just like to watch.
Yeah. I remember you telling me that, and I was
And
like, are you
This
kidding
happens
me?
to look at them and say, I'm a minor, loudly. Like, shout it so the whole mall can look and see this guy talking to you.
Yeah.
Next time this happens,
It's
as loud as you
horrible.
can, scream,
I
we're minors. We're not 18. And
Yeah.
then the whole mall is going to look at this creep. Just,
Yeah,
I'm
seriously.
so mad right now.
I feel like, too,
It
like,
was-
I
I felt
Like-
so disgusting.
I know.
I felt so
And it's not that you
horrible.
look young, but I think, I mean, I get asked if I'm in high school a lot. I think looking at you guys, I would know you're in high school, especially if I could hear part of the conversation here talking about classes or
Right.
school.
Yeah.
And I feel like for somebody to come up, that's just so not okay. And it's like, just because somebody is part of a different community doesn't make it okay for you to do something that would not be okay to you.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be okay for them to talk to a normal high school girl like
I-
that, a straight high school girl. You wouldn't walk up to
Yeah.
a
It's not okay for
heterosexual
anyone.
couple.
No.
So why would it be okay just because you guys are two females? Why does that make it okay for an adult to come up to
Yeah.
two
Or
minors?
just sexualizing gay
Ugh.
relationships in
Yeah,
general.
I feel like
Especially two women, it always seems
Yeah.
to be.
I've had an experience like that too, but it was at school. Like, me and the girl I was dating at the time were walking through the hallway and somebody just screamed, "Oh my God, you guys are gay, that's so hot." And I was like, can I
Like, nobody
help you?
asked your opinion.
Yeah, and like we would have people like, you know, do the
Yeah, I mean, I think that can happen with some females do kind of sexualize like gay men,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
it's
yeah.
that same kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But I just
Yeah.
no, make it stop.
Yeah, it's a big thing. And I feel like too, another big pet peeve that some people don't even realize is internalized homophobia. Like,
Okay, yeah.
for example, there was
Should have seen the eye flutter with that one.
yeah. There was a teacher that I had last year. Not gonna lie, I could not stand this teacher. Oh my goodness gracious. So, again, I was dating the same girl at the time, and like, right, we had the classes across from each other, and so, there was always, every day, there was this one straight couple that would stand right next to her door and just make out. Like, full on. It was just, it was absolutely
Face sucking.
I know. Did you see her? She was like gonna throw up
It's
just thinking
so
about
gross.
it.
Like, I hate watching anyone make out. It's so gross. Like, hi, get a room,
Yes,
please.
you've never
You're
been
at
okay
school.
with that.
Like, you're at school. That's disgusting. Okay, anyway. So she would never say anything to them. Ever. Not once. And the one time, literally a peck, she goes, "Rachel, this is a PDA free hallway." And I was like,
Ooh.
excuse you?
Did you
Like,
just point?
No, I didn't say
He was
anything.
like, boink over
I
here.
didn't say anything. I just went into class, and there was a girl who was actually in her class at the time too, who came out and she's like, "Did she really say that to you?" And I was like, "Yes, she did."
Oh, jeez.
So
They're like, I don't have
I
a
hated
problem
that
with
teacher.
people who are gay. I just don't want them to kiss in front of me. That
Yes.
kind of thing.
yeah,
That
exactly.
sounds like a
That's-
problem.
That's
That sounds like you
internalized
have a
problem.
homophobia.
Like, no, I'm fine with it. I just don't want to see it.
Yeah, like, she never said anything to me about it. Like, she obviously knew, like, I would have shirts and pins and such, like you said. And, you know, like, I asked to be moved once because there were a bunch of guys who were really annoying that were like, "Oh, that's so gay," and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Hi, can you move me? Because I'm gay, and I really hate hearing that." I was like, I'm literally gonna slap one of them these days, so if you can move me to the other side of the classroom, that'd be great. And so she did. And, like, she didn't, quote-unquote, have a problem with it, but she had a problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. So big pet peeves are don't sexualize people. If you have a problem, like if you don't have a problem, but then you have a problem and you need to figure that out.
yeah.
And just within the community, let's not pick each other apart.
Mhm.
Let's
Right.
not, I'm gayer than you. Let's not, let's just be more conscious of like, okay, think about how you're talking to that person. Now reverse it and pretend they're talking to you like that. You okay with it? No? Okay. Change your tone,
Remember
change
why
your
we're
attitude,
here.
change your issue.
Exactly.
Remember why we're here.
Exactly.
Peace.
Well, I think
peace.
that's awesome that you guys were here to talk to me about that. Thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you so much, Casey.
Of
Do
course.
you have any Instagram, social media, anything you want people to find you on, follow you at?
I have a cosplay account.
Cosplay. Well, where can they find you?
_ultra cosplay _.
What about you, Casey?
I do have an Instagram. It is Peaches and Casey. Casey is CASEY. And then I have a Twitter, which is CBobAllenPants.
That's too good.
I hate
That's
you.
too good. That's gold.
And this
Oh
is
my
my
gosh.
best friend. No, I'm just
Thank
kidding.
you so much for listening to A Shilling for Your Thoughts, a Papago Podcast Network podcast. You can find me on papagopodcastnetwork.com. You can also find me on A Shilling for Your Thoughts. That's on Facebook. I got a .com. You can find me if you're listening. Hey, guess what? You found me. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.